Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Ctrl H Podcast. This is our first episode, and we're really excited to be here. Hi, Harsh.
Hi, Ronil. Like we do it in every recording, I would say lights, camera, action.
Why are we doing this? Right? What is the purpose of this podcast? Well, I think in the past few years, especially at the end of COVID, and things in the world have been changing drastically, right? And it all started with this really innocent chat window called ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Came into our lives and changed everything forever. Everyone seems to be wondering what's going to happen. Is my job going to stay the same? Am I going to have a job? Will there be less work and more humans? Or will all of us evolve to start using these tools and actually become more productive? So people are worried. People are also excited. I am both worried and excited, I have to say. So here, this is a space where we want to keep up. We want to talk about how the future will look. We want to anticipate how the future will look. We want to know what to learn, what not to learn. We want to prepare ourselves for the future. That's why I'm here, and that's why I want to have conversations with people who can help anticipate the future. Right? That's the purpose.
That's the purpose.
What do you think, Harsh? Is this something we're talking about?
I'm looking at this podcast as a vehicle for us to somewhere find answers to a lot of things we both are curious about, right? Like we've always spoken about what the future of work looks like and why are there so many things around us which are constantly changing. Like every day when we chat, we talk about one new tool which has popped up on your Twitter feed or mine, and how a lot of things which we could imagine building are either already being built or are already live on an app store, right? So I see Control Plus Edge as a great vehicle for us to respond to a lot of curiosities and questions that we have. Mostly, like, a lot of us today are talking about how AI is changing their work, right? But I'm more keen to understand while we are building this together that why has AI come into our lives, right? Why was there a need? Like, what was the need gap which AI initially started filling up, right?
Well, it definitely is really solving a problem, but I think it's more about whose problem more than a problem, right? For example, I've been in the tech industry for a while. I worked at as an engineer at Bloomberg, at Facebook, and I remember the wars for talent, right? Well, today it might seem like far, far, far in the past, there was a time where companies were fighting for engineers. Everyone wanted the best engineers. Everyone wanted to have a surplus of engineers. Like I remember during COVID when Uber had a layoff, Meta swooped in and hired a lot of these great engineers, right? Because all of these leaders really appreciated what engineers could bring to the table. But they were also very, very, very irritated about how difficult it is to keep talent, how much money engineers were asking for. And even after that, they were like jumping jobs to keep getting raises. So it was an extreme employee market, right? It was a job searchers market. It wasn't an employers market at all. One thing I know for sure, a lot of employers were looking for a way to be slightly less dependent on engineers. So that is one problem that really is being solved. And as you can see, Cursor, Windsurf, Copilot, right, these tools are going mainstream, and every CEO, every founder wants their engineers to be using these tools. And a lot of these founders are using these tools for themselves. Like there is Bolt, there is Replit. People have started building apps, right? They don't want that dependency on engineers who are expensive and who also aren't stable in their job a lot of times, or at least won't. Today it's different. So that's one problem. And another problem that I can tell you is, if you've tried using Siri, you know that this was a problem companies are investing heavily in, right? Amazon was trying Alexa, Apple was trying Siri, and they just couldn't get it right. Right. And these new models are getting them right. Like if you use 11 Labs, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So while you mention a lot of use cases, I've also been pretty excited about how AI is being used beyond ChatGPT, right? Like ChatGPT is just generative AI. And a lot of use cases which you mentioned are more about how AI is being used to develop applications or change workflows, right? So, do you think we're reaching the maximum of what AI can do, or are we still kind of just touching upon the surface?
That's a great question. So I feel we are always touching upon the surface of anything because 20 years later, things are going to get better. So it's all relative. Right now, we are deep into something, but 20 years later, this is going to seem like the surface. Like when computers were invented and it was like, whoa, 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 there's this screen and it has a mouse moving on it. Like, have we like gone into the future? And then today, when we look back 20 years ago, it looks prehistoric. So I think we are always on the surface, right? But then we can also talk about how when things mature, the adoption accelerates. So in that, I would say we are somewhere in the middle. Like I wouldn't say we have just started, but I am pretty sure things are going to get much better, especially in the image and the video space. So if you remember the Will Smith eating spaghetti video years ago,
Yes.
and then every year, which is, I guess, another benchmark. I don't think in the future VFX is going to need much manual work. It's probably going to need prompting and some indications of what that prompting is talking about, right? But I don't think there will be a lot of manual work to do anymore. That future is not here yet, and it will be.
It's exciting that you say that because even I remember whenever I would look at a video, I would see whether they have 5 fingers or six, because for a long time, AI was not able to get 5 fingers right. Like it would always mess up the number of fingers in the hand. Now I think we have matured a lot. But just coming back to the point that you raised earlier, right? Like that 20 years down the line, we're going to be a very, very different kind of a space, right? I was just wondering, right? What is the next generation going to think about us? That we spend so much time on doing what? Excel sheets and email writing. Because when they are going to enter the workforce 20 years down the line, it's going to be someone's agent trying to hook up with someone's agent and solve problems. While maybe, I don't know, they read books or watch movies or finally talk about philosophy, which we don't enough. So, yeah, I think that's going to be slightly embarrassing.
Oh, yeah, 100%. If we really think about it, right? How we think about things in the past is like you used to spend so much time on this, which takes 10 minutes for me. Oh, you were an accountant and you were adding things, you were using a calculator, right? So, what subconsciously I think what we feel like is the productivity was so low and someone could make a living by even being not as productive as we are today, right? So I think the relativity is in the productivity. Oh, did you go through all the entries in an account and add them up using a calculator? That's crazy, right? Now you just add them in Tally and then you get a sum, or you use Excel, right? Similarly, I think the future generations are going to think, did you sit and move pixels on your own and create this graphic? And if you wanted something parallel to something, you dragged it, you look for indicators on the screen, like in Figma maybe, and then you checked if they were parallel, rather than asking a simple agent to go and make these two lines parallel that you've selected. So I think it's about things that were not, people were not as productive because their tools were not as productive, right? So that's how they're going to feel about us for sure.
I love that you're saying that because, I also feel that technology kind of responds to what, the workforce wants from life. Like the previous generation probably wanted to save money. A lot of tools and softwares around us are built in a way that they save time for us. But I think the next generation is going to be more about saving the number of decisions they make in a day, right? Like they wouldn't want to wake up and make 10 decisions. Like we make so many decisions, right? From the time waking up, like, okay, where to go, what meeting to join. And then in every meeting, we make 20 decisions. And, there's a big word which kind of floats around the internet today known as decision fatigue. But when agents start taking decisions for us, I don't think we will have a decision fatigue. So, what excites me is that is AI going to propel us into the age of wisdom? Because right now we're in the age of information, right? We know too much, but we don't know whether it's true or not. But with every new model of AI, which is refining information and thinking further, maybe we might just reach at an age where, we know what is wisdom and what is just data and information, right?
I guess that's a very utopian future you're thinking about. But which in the long term, I think is where we are headed. But Every time. For example, when there was a lot of automation introduced in manufacturing, in mining, in agriculture, people lost jobs, right? The transition is very painful. And I think the current thing that people are worried about is, okay, yes, we might go to Mars, we might lead to a utopian future, but what if I go bankrupt before that because there aren't jobs, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing they worry about, which I worry about as well, is AI is still in the hands of certain large corporations. So all it's doing is accelerating inequality as well, right? Because if all the profits and productivity gains from AI, right, the outcome of that is concentrated to the few who control these models, control these data centers, right? Everyone else is not going to get the benefit. Like, I'll give you a great example, right? Now, I've seen a lot of founders tell their developers to use Copilot, right? They aren't telling them, since you are more productive with Copilot, just work 4 hours, don't work 8 hours, because I am still getting my money's worth, or I'm still getting the same amount of productivity, but you don't have to work that hard. That's not happening. What's happening is they're being asked, why aren't you working twice as fast? Now you have Copilot. So the developer is not really getting any gains out of AI. Founders, yes, and I'm a founder as well, and I am getting a lot of gains out of it. But it's telling, right? It's something to think about. This technology, right, which has made development coding easier and faster, is not giving developers extra time to go and hang out on a beach, right? What it's doing is asking more out of them finally, or they have to work equally hard. So the productivity is increasing, but I don't know if the gains are going to these people. And hopefully, because they are more productive, if they get paid more, then it still makes sense, right? If you're a developer who's AI enabled, right, so you're twice as productive, right? But then are you getting paid more because the company will be making more money because outcomes are faster, there are more things delivered, right? So if that happens, good. But I don't see that happening right now. I see things concentrating in the hands of a few, which is why even I would rather have a company and try to get the profitable outcomes out of AI rather than be someone who just uses them for the benefit of some other corporation.
So, do you think that we're moving towards an era of generalization where, people who have multiple skill sets and can do multiple things together would probably be more valuable as an individual, more productive as an individual for an organization, rather than a specialist who can probably who's probably a one trick pony, right? Um, because I remember a few years ago, maybe just a decade ago, specialists were really rewarded, right? Like if you were really good at one thing, you'd be making massive amount of money, right? But basis what you just said, right, where you want not someone who's a great developer or a coder, but someone who's also equally fast, productive, profitable, so that he can do much more with the remaining time of the company, right? And I think that's going to happen in every job, right? It's just not about coding, right? It's probably something which is going to ask questions to everyone. And that's where the large question is floating around the market, right? Is AI going to actually take jobs? I think it's going to make this into a fair playing stage, right? Where the person who is able to, have multiple skills or be like a T-shaped skill set person, where it's deep in one skill set, but also shallowly, equipped at a shallow level on other skill sets, would be much more productive and a great potential employee to have for any organization. So do you think that's the way it is, or do you think AI is actually going to take jobs away?
There are two things here. One is, are we entering the age of generalization from the age of specialization? And you're right, right? The last, I think, few decades, at least the last two, was about getting really good at what you do, go deep, 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 and just be the best. And one of the reasons was every field you have so much to learn, so much to understand, that it takes a lifetime to get good at it, right? And with AI, right, you don't need to, for example, right, I don't need to remember a lot of syntactical sugar in code when writing code that I had to before, right? If I understand concepts clearly, right, I just need to tell AI to do something in a certain way, so as to not cause certain problems, right? Or I have to explain the design, and it knows what syntax to use in order to achieve that. So what that means is I can now actually spend more time in thinking about my product experience in terms of latencies, in terms of UX, rather than focusing more on making sure the design I have imagined actually happens or is implemented. How did people do this before? Well, you were a team lead or you're a staff engineer, and then you created design documents and you add other engineers to it. And then you could focus on other things. Now, the problem is instead of using junior engineers, a lot of times you're going to actually just have AI do it. So, in that regard, 100% it is taking away jobs. I think let's all of us be practical and honest about this, right? I know it's scary to think that a big change is coming, but jobs are going away. A lot of jobs are going away. That's the bad thing. The good thing is a lot of jobs are also going to come up. There are going to be new kinds of jobs. But in order for us to have an equal number of new jobs, it means that we need to come up with more ideas to build. Right now, if there is nothing to build, and if we are not really trying to make advancements in different fields, and we are happy with what we have, AI can do a lot of things, and we don't need those humans. What are those humans going to do, right? But if we plan to go to Mars, if we plan to have flying vehicles, right? If we plan to cure cancer, right? That means now we have more firepower in that direction. So all I really hope for is the world to start incentivizing these problems, right? So that companies and people invest in that direction. And because people are more productive, we actually go solve these things. But for that to happen, we have to make sure that bad form of capitalism does not just concentrate all this money in the hands of a few people, leave those decisions to them. Instead, I think if this does good to a larger number of people, right? And also the world becomes slightly more prosperous, then we align ourselves into larger missions and we don't worry about survival. So it's both. I think in the long term, I'm very optimistic. In the short term, we have to be careful to not be pushed aside by this AI wave, and instead we rather ride the AI wave and actually rise. I think so. This time it's going to be slightly survival of the fittest, which I know it's not pleasant to hear, but it's the truth.
I'm quite intrigued by the fact that you're so optimistic about your view through AI, and you look at it more like a democratic platform, which is going to again shift the status quo for builders more than consumers. Like you said, right, there are bigger missions to take part in, bigger missions to solve for builders. Very keen to understand, why did you connect so much with the mission of solving the problem which HR professionals or CTOs are facing about hiring? Do you genuinely feel that in 2025 the hiring cycle is broken?
See, that's the thing. Nothing is really broken until you see that there's a better way. Once you see a better way, everything looks broken, right? So I think Sam Altman said this, right? Or Peter Thiel. I'm sorry, I don't remember, but it's basically you have to live in the future. And honestly, I've always loved technology, and I always loved imagining the future and then trying to build it and live in it, right? So I think right now, after the advent of AI and the improvement of models, I think everything is broken, right? And there are so programming, coding is broken. The way we code has to now improve because we have these new tools. Marketing is broken, right? And the customer service is broken. Hiring is definitely broken, which is why again we are building BotFriday, right? You have to choose a field, and I worked at the best places. I've seen how the best people are hired. Even though I was in engineering at Facebook, interviewed a lot of engineers. I was on the other side of the process where we were hiring. I started my company. It started as a consulting firm. Again, I had to hire the best people. So I've seen and thought a lot about what it takes to hire good people, the right people, and assess people through skills, and also hire people with high amounts of talent in order to increase your company's talent density. So I think I've sort of become a specialist in the hiring domain along with engineering. And because I understand these two domains, I think creating an agentic platform for hiring just makes sense for someone with my experience.
Makes sense, right? Because I also, when I've seen hiring closely with the last couple of organizations which I've been part of in that building stage, right? I feel there are some mistakes which a lot of founders make, especially when it comes to hiring talent. A couple of things which come to my mind: we're too slow to fire, right? We kind of compromise too much. We have too many experiences of hiring which have left us scarred. Sometimes we are overly democratic when it comes to hiring, involving 10 people in deciding, and then knowing that none of them really ask the right questions, right? Nobody's really kind of looking at red flags, right? Like, for instance, if you've hired for the same role 5 6 times, you should by now know what are the red flags, right? And that kind of shared intelligence needs to become part of the organization's DNA, but it never does, right? Because it's always kept with individuals, right? And it's more looked at like an intuition that, okay, I don't like people who come from B schools, or maybe I don't like people who don't come from B schools. You're not really aligning to the purpose and the objective of the role. You're just kind of creating a job description on the fly. Do you think Bot Friday is going to be able to solve such problems and, bring objectivity to hiring rather than, making it as subjective a process as it is today?
Yeah, what we're trying to actually do is take a lot of subjectivity from a different number of people. We've spoken to a lot of people. I've experienced a lot of hiring, and I want to pass that through a funnel and create objective measures. So we really do want to do that. Like, for example, one of the few things we are trying is, as you said, some people have had experiences wherein, let's say they say, well, I thought hiring MBAs for this role was the right thing, but through my experience, I've learned I think people from B schools are not the right people, or B schools are okay, but maybe people who have gone to certain B schools, right? Or let's go a step further. People who have, let's say, gone to B schools, but when they are going through your interview process, they are very slow to respond to any message you send them, right? Maybe this is the combination that you understood. So with Bot Friday, you can talk, you can add what you experienced into the system, right? And the system can convert that to objective measures, and it becomes an artifact within your company wherein anyone you hire for that specific role goes through that filter that was formed through your intuition. It's not, see, just we don't want MBAs. It's a very objective filter. That could be done before the advent of AI, before the advent of LLMs. But to check, how are they responding? How is their grammar? Do they care about what they're writing? Are they kind? Are they responding on time, or are they slow? Right? Certain things there now can be checked through LLMs. And also LLMs can, now you can ask maybe people to write applications as to why they think they're good for that job. And if you have thousands of applications, you don't need a human to read through them. You can have agents do that. So a lot of these things that are very subjective and learned through experience actually now can be fed to agents, and these agents can then go take care of your hiring. So any lesson learned is codified. Before, any lesson learned sometimes would just be your lesson, or you could transmit it to other people in your company, but it's still very difficult to have them do it consistently the way you want. But with agentic AI, you can actually just put those measures or put that understanding into the agent's prompt or agent settings, and then it could do it for any hire for that position throughout your company, and that brings a lot of consistency into your hiring process. You don't make the same mistake again ever, and you don't have to remember this thing ever again. It's there in the system and you can forget about it. It's done.
Yeah. Do you think if I was to build a new company, I should just hire an agent instead of a CHROs? Like, does this agent actually replace a CHRO or an HR leader in the organization?
If you're a young company, I would in general say that you as a founder should be hiring and not a CHRO. But as a founder, right, instead of doing all these things manually, I think you should use platforms like Bot Friday and input what you've learned, input the kind of person you want, right? Add interview questions and let the platform take care of it, right? For example, we have two agents right now, agents Lex and Vox. Lex goes to the application, looks at the resume, looks at other parts of the internet to understand things about you, right? And then based on your requirement, it tries to assess if this person fits your needs, right? And then we have another agent that can schedule an interview, agent Lex, that then calls them and then interviews them and then assesses the interview and puts a score down, right? And it does it by connecting to any ATS system you already have. Founders can just set this workflow up once when they're starting the company, the way you set up a website once. And of course, you iterate and improve, but it's done. You don't have to go look at it every day, right? You don't have to get a hiring agency. You don't have to interview hundreds of people or go through thousands of resumes yourself. Or you don't have to use filters that actually are not accurate and lose out on really good people. All these things can be solved if use this as a founder. As a larger company, I think you would need a CHRO, and the CHRO will need a very small team. They can actually handle a large scale, like a large amount of hiring with these tools, right? But the CHRO will be the one orchestrating or guiding these agents. I think that's how I see it. You need leaders in the age of AI. You just this work that is more, I would say, repeatable, right, and does not require too much creativity can be outsourced to these agents.
So are you saying that when we look at a modern CHRO or an HR leader's profile, we're looking at someone who can get along well with these sidekicks, like maybe a Bot Friday, and use them like agents who are empowering him further rather than competing with him? And that brings me to a great insight that I feel it's probably going to take agents like Bot Friday to finally bring back the human in human resources, right? Because the human resource department as such has always been a department just busy, getting group insurances, planning events. But where is it real engagement, right? Where is the real engagement? The entire idea with a chief of staff or an HR leader or a CHRO was to deeply engage with the people of the company, right? And I think that part is lost. I don't hear stories of great HR leaders who kind of empowered careers or, changed or help people pivot from point A to point B. Because they're very busy interviewing, onboarding, taking exit interviews. But with agents, probably it's time that, it empowers the HR professional once again. Do you think that's what we're looking at as a future?
I think number one, you're a very optimistic person, so I can see why you feel that's going to happen. Right. Again, I have a heavy short-term pessimism, but a heavy long-term optimism. I think in the short term, I worry that if you are not someone who orchestrates these agents, if you're not someone who the business immediately needs, I don't know if the capitalist businesses of today, again, I love capitalism. I am just trying to say to an extreme when like there are bad parts as well. And this is one bad part, right? Instead of maybe improving the culture, putting the human and human resources, I worry they might think these people are surplus to requirements. So the thing is what I think these leaders will have to do is prove that when you put the human and human resources, that brings outcomes in certain ways, right? Either that could improve employee morale, which increases productivity, or it helps retain people in the company so the churn rates are low, which again saves money for the company. So I think unless anything that HR professionals do that connects to the bottom line, businesses are not going to really keep them. I think that is what my mental model of the businesses of today is.
But there's a peculiar situation which comes to my mind sometimes when people resign, right? Or people decide to move on. The management is shocked. It acts as if, they never saw it coming. I always wonder, how did the HR leader not have the pulse of the organization or pulse of these people in the company that they don't have it. They're like their heart is not in the right place, right? Which is why I'm so optimistic about Bot Friday, right? I feel that if an agent like Bot Friday is able to save time and do a lot of repetitive tasks for the HR leader will finally focus on what it should. Retain some of your best talent. And when you're able to retain talent, you're able to retain momentum, you're able to double down on business continuity. And that's what impacts the bottom line, right? It's momentum at the end of the day.
That's correct. Also, for the audience, I think it's good to give people a primer. I'm a founder of a product company called BotFriday.AI. BotFriday is a platform that hosts a lot of recruitment-based AI agents. What it does is it helps you deploy these recruitment AI agents into a hiring system of your choice. Let's say you're using Ashby HR, you're using Keka HR, you are using Notion, you're using Trello for your hiring pipeline, anything. BotFriday can integrate with these systems, deploy agents, and these agents will work on these boards instead of humans doing it. So we are essentially creating AI agents that can interview people, schedule interviews, go through applications and resumes, and all these can be deployed on the system of your choice. That's BotFriday.
Just to cut you there, Ronald, my question to you is, why is everyone so busy doing art through AI instead of solving genuine problems? Right? I want to do art. I don't want AI to do art. Let me do art, right? The whole point is that AI should take the boring stuff away, right? It should do the kind of stuff we are saying, screen resumes and do first round of interviews. But most of the use cases, I say, someone's making like a poster through AI, someone's writing a script through AI. And of course, because of the optimist or the purist that I am, I don't enjoy it. But how do you look at this thing?
I've tried making art through AI, right? My wife loves making art using technology. So I think people making art through AI is they're using AI as a better paintbrush, right? That's the best way to explain it. They are still doing it themselves. It's like saying, why aren't you using your fingers? Why are you using a paintbrush? It's a better tool, right? And I can make a better painting using a paintbrush. With AI, you can do even better. Why limit the tools you can use? Instead, raise the outcome that you can bring to the table. That's why I think people are using AI, because why not?
That kind of reminds me that we should probably do a version of Bot Friday introduction by me. I think of it like, I've always seen HR professionals, right? They've always intrigued me. Like accountants, like CFOs and CHROs are, I love them, right? Because they're never free. They're always buried under work, right? And you know that one day, like probably on a Friday, like let's just say Friday, you look at them at 11 a.m., they're already waiting for 7 because they've had it, right? They've had it. They're done with the week. And when they look at their inbox, it's already looking like Monday 11 a.m. So they know this is a never ending cycle, right? And that's the kind of energy I feel hiring takes today, right? There's too much volume, too many resumes, and too little time to actually think or go about it, right? And I feel that's where Bot Friday comes in. It's like an agent or like a sidekick which enters your ATS, does all the boring stuff. So you and your team can focus on what actually matters, which is judgment, right? Which is actually applying and saying, what is it going to take to, pivot this role into a role which contributes productively to the company. So Bot Friday kind of screens candidates, interviews them, runs behavioral assessments, and it doesn't complain. It doesn't need a holiday. Doesn't send random "let me circle back on Monday" kind of email. Uh, it's a colleague. I hate that. It's a colleague that you would love, right? It's a colleague which you always wanted, the one who gets shit done. So it's not replacing recruiters. It's actually upgrading them, giving them like superpower or super skills so that they don't feel tired. Yeah, I think that's Bot Friday for me.
I agree. And what that also means is, right, for all the recruiters out there, right, if you think you're going to be replaced, then you also have to think, what can I bring to the table to not be replaced? For example, let's say number one thing is actually, instead of fearing AI, you have to leverage AI, right? Let's say you are a recruiter. Bring in AI tools. Maybe Bot Friday, maybe another tool, maybe learn N8N and make a complex workflow yourself. Whatever it takes. Bring it in, automate it, but then also talk about, now that this is automated, what can you do next? Maybe you can go look at how you sit with people in your company, see how they're working, see what kind of person is actually contributing in the right way. Maybe assess output of every person better, and based off of that, again, change the prompts on your AI workflow. So I think it is time that because the mundane is going to be taken care of by these agents and AI, you have to be creative and you have to actually now go to the next level, right? Because finally you still need humans. AI can do a lot of things, but humans are going to orchestrate AI. Sorry, I dropped my mic.
Quite a mic drop moment.
Yeah. Maybe we edit this joke out, but
No, we should keep it.
Harsh, now I have a question for you, right? We spoken about engineering. Like, I'm an engineer by trade. I use Copilot, Cursor, wins of all of them. I've jumped around and I use them extensively, right? I can't live without, I don't know how I lived without them in the past. So, and now we've also spoken about HR. Now, you have been a marketer all your life, right? You speak to a lot of CMOs. What are they asking for? Right? I'm sure they are hearing about the advances AI is making. They are worried and excited. Like, what's the conversation right now in those circles?
If you just look at the role of the CMO, the role of the CMO has changed a lot in the last 5 years post COVID. A lot of CMOs are now CGOs or the chief growth officers, right? There's a huge sales component or a ROAS component which has been added to the branding and marketing mix. The branding and marketing workflows are pretty ancient, right? There's a lot of unnecessary importance or focus given to just documentation, presentations, which I feel AI is going to take over very soon. I see two kinds of CMOs. I see one kind of CMO who wants to do AI just because it gives him bragging rights or just because it gives him a headline for the brand. But I see a few CMOs who are already tinkering with changing the workflow. Like imagine the consumer research, which a lot of marketers came to the industry because they love talking to consumers. And I feel somewhere they lost the art of talking to consumers because they're very busy making a presentation or building an Excel sheet. Leave that to AI. Go back to the market, go back to the field, talk to your consumers because all the answers lie there. They are going to tell you what they want. So I think what AI can do for CMOs, it's just a matter of time till they realize it. But I think the biggest use case of AI for CMOs is changing the workflow, right? The way they make decisions, the way they kind of operate needs to completely change so that they start building brands again. So they, why do we look up so much to an Amul or a Fevicol, right? Because those are the last iconic brands built, right? Today, brands are built for like 6 months or a year, and next year it's forgotten. Like the diminishing returns of a brand which is created in a hurry or without a lot of thought is out there for us to look at, right? But brands which are created with a lot of consumer insights, with a lot of consumer research, have stood the test of time. And I feel that's the big change which, is going to hit CMOs really bad. It's going to bring back the focus to marketing and branding in a big, big way, right? I love what the whole truth is doing, right? I love all the products they have. I love how the communication, right from their website to their social media to the leaf within the product is exactly the same, right? And you know what they're talking about. It resonates with you, which means there is someone who's doing the tough work of talking to the consumers because that is something which AI is not going to be able to do. You still have to go out there. AI can possibly record consumer feedback for you, but interpreting them with a human lens is still something that CMOs will have to do, and that's the part I'm excited about.
Sounds like AI will bring the human back in marketing as well, not just human
Yes.
resources.
Yeah. And
No.
and that's great, right? Because we want
Yeah.
AI to act like humans.
Yeah.
So that we can act like humans again, right?
100%. Well, you know how I imagine the impact of AI, right? All of us get to be Tony Stark is the excited part, right? Like, do you know, nowadays when I'm writing code, well, it's not writing code anymore. I put my headphones on. I just talk to GitHub Copilot, and it just does some things for me, right? So it's like I am sitting and talking, and that's what Jarvis and Tony Stark did together, didn't they? I think when we were younger and we never thought such a future was ever possible. And today I'm talking to AI. Do you know how I write my blogs, right? Again, I am speaking with AI and forming my idea along with it. And I am sure we at some point we will invite AI as a guest in our podcast as well. That's not far away either. So that's crazy.
It's almost like, we were discussing in the past, it's going to redistribute resources democratically, right? Where everyone has an equal access to, making something, creating something, as long as you have an original idea, as long as you have an original thought, which brings back a lot of undivided attention to who has an original thought, right? Because, a lot of time when I listen or discuss in the classroom with a lot of students, I often push them to ask, is this your original opinion? Or is this a watered down version of something that you heard someone say who you're probably inspired by? Or have you critically thought about something and arrived at an opinion of your own and you genuinely believe that, right? Because the magic of discovery is beautiful, right? And that's why we are so amazed when we go out and we see something new. And I feel the joy of discovery can come back, right? Because you can now focus on doing things rather than, just kind of thinking about it. Like how easy it is today to make a beta version of an app. It's damn easy, right? Like would love it.
Damn easy, right? Dude, I have so many friends who are so excited and happy. Like they call me, dude, I made a whole app. I couldn't ever imagine I could do that because they were aligned on engineers. And even though I'm an engineer, I'm so happy for them because they should be able to. Why not? And I am not worried because then I'll do even better things with it rather than worrying that someone's doing what I was doing in the past. Not at all. Plus, I don't think AI is replacing engineers though. I think the only job that's safe is engineers because a lot of things I want AI to do so that my product, I don't have to really have engineers work hard on certain things, or I don't have to really use too much brain juice. I want AI to be able to do certain things. It's not able to at a lot of times. And I understand why, right? Finally, you have to provide a certain kind of direction in terms of design, in terms of architecture. And if you have to do that, then that is engineering. As a fresher, I know people think writing code is engineering. Writing code was never good engineering. It's thinking about trade-offs, thinking about design, making the right decisions, keeping the future in mind, writing and building stuff in a way that's maintainable so that someone else, when they come in, take your place because you have moved on to better things in the same company, maybe they should find it easy, right? Are you selfless enough to, structure things in a way where anyone can come in and just start contributing in a day? These are the things that make a good engineer.
Yeah, like you said, right? I also feel that this is going to kind of bring to the market a lot of one person companies because through agents, it's going to be possible to orchestrate a bunch of agents instead of hiring a bunch of folks, where the founder is then able to kind of scale on his one or two skill sets and actually capitalize on it, right? Because he has the access to resources just like everyone else does. And then, like we discussed, what's going to matter is originality. Things which a lot of finer, human values like relationships, original thinking, a lot of attention is going to come back to these things.
Which is amazing. I think it's a great thing, right? And think about this best example of a one person business. There are a lot of agencies that just do hiring, screen resumes, call people, interview, and then forward them to their clients. I think one person orchestrating their BotFriday account can now do this, right? They don't really have to hire people to go through resumes because finally, when they hire people to go through applications or interview, they guide them as to how to do it. Well, instead of guiding these people, just guide the agents and have them do it. Anyway, I think this was a great first conversation on this podcast. We touched upon so many things. What did you think?
I just felt like every other conversation that we have, but slightly more focused on how we look at AI and what the future of work looks like. It's great, right? Because I feel a lot of clarity comes through such conversations. So I think it was great because AI is such an evolving field that with every new conversation, you gain more clarity on how to use it. So I look at this as, one of those conversations for me.
You know what? Let's start bringing in guests into this podcast and getting their opinion on these things, learning from their expertise and asking them about how the world is going to look like and how do we survive the world that's coming in.
Yeah, way exciting.